Hello, you have a prepaid call from
Keith Jesperson,
Bruce Davis,
Patton Clark, Robert Barno.
What's your friend?
Hey everybody, welcome to another edition of The Light Side of Serial Killers. I am your host, Keith Rovere. Thanks for tuning in. As we're still getting started here on the new video podcast, you can check out the audio podcast on Spotify, Amazon Music, or anywhere podcasts are hosted. But this is something a little bit new. Some facilities have video chats that we can do, which I've been uploading, and other facilities don't. But even the ones that don't, like as of now, Louise Turpin, we're doing an audio podcast today as far as her giving a call on the phone. We're going to be doing a future video podcast. But today it's just going to be audio only, so you're going to have to look at me the whole time, and I'll put pictures up of Louise and pictures from what happened during her arrest and things like that. So we're going to be doing a little something different today. But normally they'll have video chats from me, but we'll be doing one with Louise in the future, one among many other people, which is pretty cool. We got one coming up with Wayne Adam Ford. He was just recently on my audio podcast. We're going to be doing a video chat with him soon. He's getting his things situated over there. Last time I had an audio chat with him, we actually had our guitars out. We played some songs together. He sang me a song, I sang him a song, so hopefully maybe we'll do a little jam, similar to what we did with Joseph Danks on one of the last editions that we did here. I jokingly said that I might not be as good as a guitarist as Stevie Ray Vaughan, Steve Vai, Jimmy Page, Jimi Hendrix, but none of them can said they jammed with a serial killer at San Quentin on death row. I think I'm going to win that one. Some people say I would not want to do that, but that's me. I'm a little special, as they say. But today, Louise Turpin's going to join us. It's a little different feel. Anytime there's children and neglect and abuse, it's obviously a tragic and horrible thing, and people are way more comfortable hearing from serial killers than someone was doing. Now, she certainly wasn't murder in the case, but certainly neglect and torture, as it's been labeled, and certainly rightfully so. I've also recently started talking to, I think her now ex. I think they're officially divorced. I know she has filed from David Turpin. I've been reaching out to him, and we've been talking through letters back and forth. I'm not sure if he's going to be coming on the podcast or not, but what I do is, want to learn more from these people who commit violent offenses. Have they learned, how they grown, how they can teach others, don't do what I do. This is why I did what I did. This is my background, and this isn't justifying anything, because we're going to be hearing about the abuse and her childhood abuse. And people say, oh, everybody was abused when they were younger, or the people who were abused when they were younger, not all of them turn out to be violent offenders. Yes, it's true, but it's still, we need to know the background of why somebody turned out that way, at least their explanation, because so many documentaries and news articles have been written about people like Louise, but they've never interviewed her or the person in question, because they have their own opinions. They bring their own psychologist on, and they have their own, sometimes even their own agenda to push out there. So part of my show at the lighter side is to hear from them. Again, this isn't condoning anything anybody's done, especially horrible, heinous crimes. But at least you get to hear from them. People say, "Why would you want to interview her?" And receive a lot of hate. And but we got to know from them. Their explanations. Sometimes in trial, we don't even get to hear from them. So we're going to be hearing from her today, maybe in a video podcast in the future, just to get inside her mind a little bit. Sometimes it's a scary, ugly place. Sometimes you don't think they're going to be truthful. Maybe they are, maybe they aren't, but at least we get to hear from them about what went on. Some of you might have seen. If not, I recommend go, before you listen to this, go search the Turpin family documentary on YouTube. You can find it. There's a multiple part one, but find the one that's all in one episode. And the daughter, Jordan, and the miraculous escape from this house that was very torturous and very abusive, and very limited schooling and human interaction. It was a miracle she even was able to talk to the 911 operator, and even when the policeman got there, you can see the body cam footage she's very uncomfortable and doesn't know certain words and what certain words mean, and it's hard to explain. But she did. The bravery of her is tremendous, and I'm so happy that through social media, she's a lot of celebrities are following her, and hopefully financially the family's secure. And for those that know, when the family when Louise and David were arrested and taken to jail, the children went to foster care where they were abused again. It's just a heartbreaking story. I believe they're all doing okay, not okay mentally now, but at least in a safe space now, and hopefully some of the children are making a few dollars and kind of help support each other. There's a lot of money that was raised for the children that I don't believe they even got yet. It was just completely mishandled. It was just a travesty of justice. It was just horrible all the way around, and it still is. Hopefully there's a little light at the end of the tunnel. But I want you to hear from Louise today and her story. Again, whether you accept what she said, not accept what she said, at least we have something on record, so to speak, of what was going through her mind, at least the rationale that whether she's living with that now, that's her version of the truth, or the truth actually is. So without me babbling on too much longer, because you know me, I like to talk, I like to babble, let's hear from Louise Turpin. Hello, Louise. It's been a while since we chatted. I'm glad we can reconnect again. I think last time we talked, you were looking for some friends there, making some friends. So how are you making out at your facility? And have you made some new friends there recently?
I've made a few friends. I actually got baptized on October 30th.
Wow.
That was nice. So so that's kind of new. It's been a while since we talked, huh?
Tell me about the church there. I know different facilities kind of have different programs. Sometimes they have a dedicated chaplain. Sometimes different pastors from different churches come. And tell me a little bit about the setup there. Do you have one chaplain, or how does that work at your facility?
Actually, the chaplain here, we have service every Sunday through the church service that they have here on the main yard. They offer baptism. They do a baptism like twice a year, and then they do class for that before you do. Like the class is like 6 months long or something.
Oh, that's wonderful. Definitely nice.
Yeah, it's really nice.
Well, it's nice that they have classes teaching you about baptism and what baptism is. I know a lot of places, those dunk somebody in the water, like a Jeffrey Dahmer, so to speak, who's baptized and everything. Oh, he's a Christian now, but I don't know if he actually knew what baptism meant. So it's good they actually taught you what it means before you do it.
Right, and to kind of see where the person's heart is, like, is this, do you know what you're doing this for? This is, this is serious,
What do you think were some of the most important things you've learned from those classes?
Well, I will tell you, I grew up in church, but it was very strict church. One of the things that I was taught was wrong was to get a divorce. And so I struggled a little bit with that when I made the decision. And I even asked the chaplain about it, talked to the chaplain about it a little bit to be clear on it, When I made the decision to get a divorce, I had prayed about it, and I spent quite a while in lots of tears, everything, just trying to figure out, why am I questioning myself? It was just, I was never happy in the marriage. It was controlling, abusive, and emotionally and physically. And I think through a lot of time alone away from him and through prayer, I really believe in my heart that God wants me to be happy. I don't believe He wants me to go through that. I have truly felt happier, the happiest in my life once I met with divorce papers. And at first, I was really nervous about it. And, I'm doing the wrong thing. And I was sitting at the mail spot, kind of walked back and forth a little bit. And I was like, I told myself, you've got to do this. And so I dropped it in the mail, and as soon as that left my hand, I felt such a peace and happiness that I'd never known before.
Mm.
And I never thought I could feel any kind of happiness being away from my children. But honestly, at that moment when I made that decision and I dropped the divorce papers, I knew it was what I needed. And I knew it was right for God because I could have felt that much peace and happiness.
Wow.
Once I dropped, you know what I'm saying?
Of course.
Oh, not that I don't love my kids. It's just that, that's something that I needed for a long time.
Yeah, I'm sure. Now, does David still reach out to you? Through letters, through other people, through other maybe family members? Or when was the last time you talked to him, and does he still write?
Well, okay, it was September 2021 when I mailed papers and filed for the divorce. I did write some after that, and he continued writing, and I really thought I need to cut this off. I'd already told him that I filed for divorce, and that he was still trying to keep it going. And I stopped writing him, and it was in April 2022. No, yes, April 2022. When he wrote me then, I didn't respond back. And then he wrote me again, and I didn't respond back. My birthday is in May, and he sent me a birthday card, and I didn't respond to that. I didn't send him any kind of Christmas card or birthday card for him or anything. I just really stopped talking altogether. After May, he finally just stopped, and so there has been no communication, and that's really good.
Yeah, I know, some churches are a little bit more legalistic than others, especially when it comes to some divorce. The Bible's pretty clear that, it's allowed, certain circumstances. Certainly it's frowned upon. Nobody wants to get divorced, and according to scriptures, God hates divorce. But, if someone's not a believer in the family, if someone, through adultery, there are biblical grounds to be divorced, to get divorced. And some churches have a little very strict adherence to that, or you got to pay X amount of dollars to be divorced. Some churches it's a little silly, but no, God doesn't like it. But no, hey, it's divorce is you're allowed biblically, so to speak, for sure.
Yeah, I've learned through the years, and now I'm really feel really at peace where I'm at, and but I've learned that there's so many different beliefs, and it's all in how the Bible is interpreted. But I've learned that I'm just going to let God speak through the Bible. I don't need somebody else to tell me, oh, no, that's wrong. I'll let God say that that's wrong. And, sometimes, like we might have a question or we might need some advice or something like that. That's okay. But I'm just saying that it's just really hard because it's hard for people to know because I grew up in a religion where so many things was wrong. Like I was taught that the husband is supposed to be the head of the house and do what he says, no matter what it is, and like you take whatever he lashes out, like. But I think a lot of people take scripture and they, everybody interprets it different.
Yeah, it's definitely true that we should be, in our own accord, studying. And any religion that somebody is, you should know what you're getting yourself into, know what their holy scriptures say, whatever religion it is, especially in Christianity specifically. It's good to know that, and it's also we have to be mindful because it's also very, very vital important to be underneath somebody who knows it thoroughly, that we can learn from, to sit underneath their feet, so to speak, and to learn. We just have to be careful that fall under the feet of Charles Manson, who used the Bible to certainly persuade others or do certain things. David Koresh, and numerous people over the years who've led cults as the Bible is their foundation, and people thought what they were reading was true. So yes, it's a good mix of we need to know the truth, and we need to know what the Bible says, and somebody to help interpret it. And sometimes it's hard to do that. But yeah, it's kind of good on both ways to find somebody we can trust. And that we trust our own mind, and heart and conscience that the good Lord's speaking to us, and He give us wisdom and do the right thing. We can learn obviously so much about love and forgiveness, which is the most important things according to the Bible. And speaking of love and forgiveness, we'll talk a little bit more about this later in depth. But as far as your children go, have you talked to any of them? Have any of them reached out to you? Obviously, forgiveness and mercy and grace is, according to the Bible, is very important, but especially in difficult times, for them and for you guys, of course. Have any of them reached out to you?
That's very difficult. There's only one of them I talked to, and so that's really hard. My youngest one doesn't even really remember me. It's even harder, which is only two when I left. But I put everything in God's hands, and in His timing, I believe I will be reunited with them.
Yeah, I mean, of course, it's a possibility, and again, as according to scriptures, all things are possible, with God. But sometimes it takes time. I mean, especially something like this. I mean, it's a minor miracle itself that even one of your children, I think you said your youngest daughter is reaching out to you, and you're communicating with her. And who knows what happens in time? I mean, obviously, it's going to take a lot of healing. A lot of healing for what went down. But like I said, it's a minor miracle that everyone's talking right now and in communication with you.
It is. It's awesome.
Do you have anybody at your facility that you can confide in, that you trust, that you can talk about these things with?
Yeah, I made a couple of friends I feel like are genuine.
And are these the friends that you met at the church services? Your Christian friends, people that you can talk with and pray with?
Yes, they are.
Yeah, that's good. I mean, a lot of my followers and myself, we're familiar with the documentary. Just what happened in the house itself with the abuse and the courageousness of your daughter. Climbing through the window and tracking down the policeman, calling 911. But I mean, I know obviously a little bit about your story. I mean, your background, unfortunately, started with abuse. Part of what I do here is, let everybody almost like into your mind, so to speak, of how this all happened, where it all went wrong. Can you talk a little bit about your past? I mean, part of my hope is too is, when you see something negative, try to get a positive. That's what's called the lighter side, the positive out of negatives, even horrible negatives. But I mean, my hope, part of my hope by you coming on is to, if there's any person listening that has been going through abuse themselves, that they can pull something from this, something positive, something to hold on to. So tell us a little bit about your past and just the horror itself of what happened to you.
It's nice to, if I could do anything to help others to prevent it going that far, I want to be a part of that, so.
And sometimes we have to hit the lowest of lows in order to realize we have a problem. Like addicts, addicts and alcoholics. A lot of times they need to hit rock bottom, and a lot of times, I've been helping out in local prison facilities here for years, and people's eyes don't get open sometimes of the harsh reality of the truth or what they're doing to themselves or to friends or to family until they hit rock bottom. And sometimes the good Lord, that's what He puts us at rock bottom before our eyes opened up. Again, that's why I'm hoping people can hear this too before they hit rock bottom, before they do something that lands them in prison, to make a change in their lives.
Crazy too, because I tell people, like after I filed for divorce, that I'm happier now than I've ever been in my life. And I found that some people found that interesting, especially like any family I talked to. They said, "Wow, you're in prison and you can say that." And I'm like, "Yeah, I can say that." I needed to come here to actually realize what I needed to do, which is really crazy. I always knew. I feel like I knew what I needed to do. It's just I didn't do it. But that's where, like a lot of times people say, like, I don't understand why she stays. Why does she put up with that? Like you hear things like that. People say that. But until you've been there, like I can relate to people on that. Like I can understand to a certain extent. But yeah, it's something I should have done a long time ago. And like I said, divorce. The divorce crossed my mind before I was even married a year. Not like I didn't know. I didn't act on it.
You said before to me in a conversation that you realized very quickly in your marriage, very early on, even within like the first year, you realized it was a mistake to marry David. Can you talk a little bit about that and what specifically you mean by that and what you think was going wrong?
Well, here's the thing. Now, this is the surprise, is that before I got married, I didn't even really want to marry him, so I wasn't even happy about going into the marriage to begin with. And there was no excuse. Well, I don't know. Okay, so when we first went out, I was 15. He was 22. And when we went out on our third date, he raped me.
Wow.
I started to say he never physically abused me, but I guess that would be physical abuse. And so that's why I was like, stop myself because. And then on dates after that, like there were some dates after that, and every one he would force himself on me. And I would push him away and say no, and I would try to fight it, but I wasn't strong enough. And so he ended up, when I introduced him to my best friend, he ended up asking her out. And then he just started dating some other girls, and then he came back to me. This was just over a period of a few months. Then he came back to me and gave me a dozen roses for my birthday, and then he moved away to another state. Then he came back like 3 months after he moved and told me he wanted to talk to me. He wanted to see me. I didn't know what that was about, but I went. And when I went with him, he just parked somewhere and he pulled out a ring and said, "Will you marry me?" And I said no. And I think that caught him by surprise, but I wasn't happy, because he had hurt me in a lot of ways.
Of course.
And so I said no, but it surprised him a little bit. And when I said no, he was hesitant for a second, and then he asked me again. And I said no. But he continued asking me, and I continued saying no. After about 10 to 15 times, I just wanted to go home. And I said yes just to get him to take me home. And so after that, I confronted him again, and I said, I really don't want to get married because I never wanted to I was 16. Well, I was 16. And I said, I never wanted to get married this young, and I'm not ready is what I told him. Which is true. I didn't want to get married that young. And that was the first time I saw his temper. He got mad and told me that I don't have a choice because I already told him I would, and I couldn't change my mind. And that he was really angry, and it scared me. And so I walked away from it, and that was. But I was still engaged because he didn't take the ring back to tell me I didn't have a choice. And the thing is I kept this all to myself, and I didn't tell my family about it or anybody. And so nobody knew about these things that's going on. My mom was concerned that I was engaged, and she tried to get me to go out with other guys and stuff like that, but she never knew any of the details or anything. I never talked to her about it. So, he wanted to run off, and I told, and then I first said yes to that because I was used to saying yes. I wasn't good at saying no at the time. And then I told him, I said, no, I don't want to run off because, well, see, I was I was the kid in school that never got in trouble, things like that. So, but I wasn't one to want to do that anyway. But he got mad over that. So I ended up agreeing to it, and we ran off and got married. But that's how I ended up getting into it. But honestly, when I married him, I didn't even feel like I really liked him. So it was easy to know shortly that I wanted out.
I'm sure.
But then, like, they're taught that, marriage is forever, that, well, in my case, that divorce is wrong in God's eyes, and so many things, like, and so, like, I guess we were married probably about maybe 7 or 8 months, and I asked him, I said, can we just see a counselor? And he said, no, we don't need to see a counselor. Something's wrong with our marriage. And I said, but we fight. And he said, well, that's normal. And I said, I agree. It is normal to argue or, to have but I said that you hurt me. You hit me. You hurt me. And he said, well, that's normal too. And so I was never able to go on my own, so he would know. And so it just continued and continued. It was I know, like, he changed our wedding vows. My daughter even reminded me of it one day, but he had changed our wedding vows. He he wouldn't have Sylvester's part in it. He refused to have that in there, so he changed it to till a resurrection to his part. And what happened was I was talking to my daughter on the phone one day, and she said, I found a copy of y'all's wedding vows. And I said, really? I didn't even know there was a copy laying around. She said, I didn't either, but she says, when I was going through the stuff, she says, I came across it, and she read it to me and read that till the resurrection to his part. And she said, I never heard it like that. And I said, yeah, I said, that is kind of different. But I said that was something your dad wanted in there, so he put it in there. That is kind of interesting, but yeah. So that's kind of like some of the beginning.
Sadly enough, I mean, I know a few women who have been in, and some are even still in, very abusive relationships, whether it's just mentally abusive or even physically and sexually even. And some when they had their first child. And some like yourself, if it's their first relationship they were in that was abusive, and that's all they knew. They didn't really know unconditional love, or they didn't have family. That's another hard part. When they have nowhere, they think nowhere to escape from. You can't just run back to mom and dad's house if there's no mom and dad. When you had your first child, at least from my experience and people that I've known, it's like that child gave them that unconditional love that they never felt. What was the feeling with you when you had your first child? Did you sense that, man, now I really know what love is? And how was that emotionally for you for the first child?
I wanted a baby right away, because for me, getting married was all, I couldn't wait to be a mother. That was the most important thing to me, and I felt like that was the only reason to get married. He didn't want to have a child. But no, he said, no, let's wait. He was kept putting it off. And I understood. I did graduate from high school after I got married. But after I got graduated, I ended up pregnant with my first. I had the morning sickness and everything, and he suspected it too, but he still wasn't at that point yet. And I knew he wasn't happy about it. He said, well, just take a pregnancy test, let me know. He said, but he was really upset because he thought I might be pregnant. He told me that it was all my fault if I was. So I remember I took the pregnancy test, and it's like, I remember that at that moment when I saw that it was positive, I was so excited. I just was happier. I was so happy. Like I was so full of joy, and I was just like, thank you, Lord, thank you, But this is, sure as I got happy in just an instant, I turned around and sat on the floor and started crying. So then I got scared, because I knew that that's not something he wanted. And I remember I said, please, God, whatever he does to me, don't let him hurt the baby. And so I was so scared. I didn't know what he was going to do or how he'd react, even though he knew I was pregnant. And when he came back, he asked me, he said, well, did you think that was the first thing you wanted to know? And I said, yes, it was positive. And he was not happy about it. He was angry. But he did walk away. He didn't lay hands on me at that time. So I was thankful for that, and I thank God for that. But he wasn't happy about it, but I was scared. He told me a couple days later, he said, I made us an appointment. And I said, oh, okay, for what? And he made an appointment for us to talk to somebody about an abortion. And that was so hard, because I'll be honest with you, Keith, I would never have an abortion. I would give a baby up for adoption. Couldn't do it. Yeah. Everybody has their opinion about abortion, but my personal opinion is still a life, the way I see it. And it was very hard to sit through that. He took me there, and this lady was trying to talk us into having an abortion.
Obviously, you didn't go through with the abortion. How was it? How long after did you have a second child and all subsequent children?
I had my first baby in 1988. I had my second one in 1992. Then I had one in 1993. Then 95. Then 97. Then 98, 99, 2000, 2002, 2003, 2005, 2006, 2015.
You got that memorized pretty good, don't you?
Yeah.
Yes, it sounds like you're a professional for sure. Now, did each birth or each pregnancy, I should say, get easier and easier after? I mean, figure after 10, it's almost like, I got this on my own, no problem. Would it get easier and easier? Did it get harder? I mean, I'm not, I never really talked to anybody who had, so many children. But did it get easier, or how'd that process after the first 3 or 4 go?
You know what? it's crazy. They say it does, but no, that's not true. So my third one, well, let's see. I'd say if I had to say which one was my hardest labor, well, actually my hardest labor wasn't my third one. I actually almost died with her.
Wow.
I came really close to dying with my third one. There was, the pain was very intense. With all of my pregnancies, all my labors and deliveries, I never took any drugs. I've never, out of having 13 babies, I've never had an epidural in my life. Were natural births. They were all natural, and they were all hospital births. They were all natural. I didn't take anything. If they offered me something, I didn't take it. But number three, the pain was, there was something I felt like was wrong. It was super intense. And I didn't even know if I'd be able to deliver her because it was really bad. And so after she was born, I was having a really hard time holding her, nursing her, or anything. And the nurse even came and asked me one time, she said, "Are you nursing her? Like, is she eating?" And I told the nurse, I said, which I had been telling them prior, that I was in so much pain. They had given me Vicodin, was a painkiller they'd given me. But it just, still, I was just in a lot of pain that I did not experience the other two, but it was just almost like I could feel something was wrong. And so the doctor was going to send me home the next day, and I told her, I said, "Can I stay another day?" I said that, like, something's not right. She checked me. She said, "Well, everything looks fine, and so I need to send you home." So I'm like, okay. So when I went home, David pretty much took care of her. I laid in bed and she was 5 days old, so it was the 5th day. I really felt like I was dying. I didn't feel like, I thought I can't, like something's not right. And I told him, I said, "I really feel like I'm going to die. I feel like I'm slipping away." And he said, he went and called the doctor's office, and she told him to bring me in immediately. And it was so bad I couldn't even walk. Seriously, he had to carry me. It was that bad. And so when he finally got me to the doctor's office, they had like this sofa in the doctor's office, and it was empty, and I laid down on it. And when the nurse saw me laying out there, she said, "Bring her back immediately." So when I went back there, they took me up to the sonogram machine. They got me on the table and took me up to the sonogram machine. And she said, "I need to get the doctor." So the doctor came in there, so it was the nurse and the doctor. And the nurse told me, she says, "Okay," she says, what it was is she told me that she was going to open me up manually, and she said it's going to be very painful, so I'm just warning you. But, like, it was just like, there was a lot of blood clots she had to, actually there in the office, like, get out of my uterus. And so she had to actually, like, get all of that. It was just like, I just was filled up with all this blood inside and everything. And she told me what it was. She said it was an infection I had gotten, and I forgot what it's called, but it's some kind of infection. And she said that women get it when they have babies sometimes. She said my body did react to it like most women, so they overlooked, they missed it. She said that's what it was. She said if you hadn't come in when you did, you would have died. She said you came in just in time, because she said you wouldn't have made it another day.
Oh, wow.
You couldn't have made it another 24 hours. And so she told me that I would have died. And she said that most women that get that, no, she said a lot of women that get that infection do die. And so she said I was really lucky. She said another reason they didn't catch it is usually when the mother gets it, the baby has it as well. It passes on the baby. And the baby was fine. So.
Wow. I mean, obviously, at least it, obviously turned out good in the end.
Yeah. That one was, every pregnancy was different. Some I had more sickness in, and, than others and stuff like that. My 10th one, I was the sickest through the pregnancy. That was during my pregnancy. I almost died with number 10 too, but that was not during childbirth. That was during the pregnancy later in my pregnancy because I got really sick. But my fourth one was probably my fastest one. I felt the urge to push before I even left the house. And when they got me on the table, they didn't even. I mean, when I got on the bed, they didn't even give me an IV. I was already ready to have him. He was born 20 minutes after I got in the bed.
Yeah, listen, he's like, listen, I'm a professional. I know what I'm doing. I'll take it from here.
But he was the fastest. But you know, I have to tell you though, seriously, that my easiest pregnancy, and I was my last one. She was my easiest pregnancy, my easiest labor and delivery, and I was 47, 2 months away from being 48 when I had her. And they had me like on this. They were watching me real closely because they considered it a high-risk pregnancy because of my age. But I did. That was the only baby of all of my babies that I didn't have any morning sickness or get sick with at all. I went to the hospital and she was checking me. She said, "You know, I don't think you're going to progress. I think we'll be sending you home." I said, I thought in my head, I thought she'll keep me. And then right after I thought that, my water broke. And I said, "I think you should check. My water just broke." She said, "Oh, you're saying." And then I told her, I said, I'll have her pretty fast. I said, because by this time, like you said, I've had so many babies, I kind of knew what I was doing at this point.
I've seen a few pictures of your family online. I mean, there's not really many out there. But I've seen a few. One, I don't know if it was like an Elvis impersonator. I think maybe it might have been like at Disneyland or something. You know what picture I'm talking about, where all the family was gathered together, and I think they were dressed like in the same shirt or something like that, kind of dancing around a little bit. Where was that? Where was that taken from?
Oh yeah. You know, actually, we took kids to Vegas once.
Oh, so it was Vegas.
Yeah, that was where the Elvis impersonator first day or what. We took them to Vegas once, and thought they would enjoy it. You know, just something new, because when we were in Texas, we didn't really go out and do much of anything. We never went out as a family and did things as a family. When we came to California, that was something nice because we were doing things as a family for the first time in our life. So we were doing different things. We went to Arizona to see the Grand Canyon, took them to see that, and we had annual passes for Disneyland, and that was fun. And we took them to Vegas. And so after our trip to Vegas, we were leaving Vegas, and I asked them, I said, "Next year, do y'all want annual passes for Disneyland, or do you want to come back to Vegas again?" I was expecting them, honestly, to say they wanted to go to Disneyland. But they said, we want to come back to Vegas. And I said, "You do realize that I said annual passes, which we can go like we did before. You know, you can go as much as you want throughout the year." They said, "No, we want to come back to Vegas." I said, "Okay." So we went back to Vegas the next year. It was something different, yeah. It was fun for them because, like I said, we never went anywhere during the years.
Sure.
Now, were the children ever involved in any outside activities, like sports and other events? I mean, I heard some interviews with Jordan and some of the other sisters. They said they didn't really, have much social interaction. When they were younger, did they have interaction at all? They stay mostly at home, or you keep them mostly at home? Are they involved in any type of sports, whether even through the church at all?
They mostly hang around the house, yeah.
Now, you mentioned that David was very abusive towards you. Or from the beginning, basically. Now, did that stop once you started having a few children? Did that stop, and or did it unfortunately just keep going on throughout the entirety of the marriage?
Yes, it did happen all throughout the relationship. Honestly, I should have known. I mean, yes. I mean, even before we got married. Not should have. I knew before we got married. He was like that, so.
I mean, did you ever think to yourself, if I can go back and have a restart, so to speak, what would you have done differently?
I hate to think about not having them, but it's crazy. I think there's a reason we don't know our future and what it would be. It definitely would be so different.
And we're talking about baby steps, as far as reconciliation of sorts with the children, and obviously we'll get into some of the more the darker stuff, so to speak, of what happened with the case.
Right. And also, I want you to know that I want you to feel comfortable asking me anything. You know, I may not think of something to say or whatever, but you can ask anything.
Oh,
I mean, if I don't want to say it, I'll tell you, but I'm open to talking to you, so.
I really appreciate that, and I think that's what people want to hear. What happened? What went wrong? And we're hearing a little bit about your background. And again, it's the whole idea of the podcast is get inside people's minds and get people the truth out and their or perceived notion of the truth, what they were going through at the time, their version of events, so to speak. And who knows? I mean, my goal in all this is to bring people together in reconciliation of one form or another. Again, bringing light out of darkness. That's what's called the lighter side. But maybe even speaking about getting somebody's mind, can you take us inside the mind of David? Maybe when you guys were out of the house, when you guys are out and about, and just take it like a daily thing. I mean, what were the things that normally were going through his mind on a daily basis when you guys were outside of the house?
He was very jealous. And he was like, when I would go to the store or something, I'd be like, oh God, please don't let there be a man at the register because he could hi to me or anything. It was like, I knew David was going to lose it. Because he was that way, like jealous. Like, like for example, he physically abused me one time because a guy shook my hand to welcome us to the neighborhood.
Who was doing that? You said walking through the neighborhood?
Okay, so we had just moved into the neighborhood, and David was unpacking, and so I let him know that we needed to get some groceries. He said, well, why don't you go to the store and get some groceries, because it was just like probably 5 minutes from where we live. And I said, okay. So I went. Well, when I came back, I told David, because I didn't think I'd done anything wrong. So the guy at the grocery store, he offered to walk out to the car for me, which I thought was nice. And he was talking to me, and he asked me if I was new, and I said, yeah, my husband and I, we just moved into the neighborhood.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, he loaded the groceries into my trunk for me, and he put out his hand to shake my hand. He said, well, welcome to the neighborhood. And I said, oh, thank you. And I shook his hand. Well, when I got back with the groceries, I said, they're really friendly here. They're nice. He said, what do you mean? And I said, well, the guy that bagged the groceries, he took them out for me, put them in my trunk, and shook my hand and welcomed me to the neighborhood. And he got angry and physically abused me, and he was very angry over that. And I didn't think I didn't understand like what the deal was, but he told me, he said he was angry over me shaking his hand.
Oh, geez.
I said, he wasn't coming on to me, he was just shaking my hand, and he told me that was the same as him holding my hand. That was his words at the time.
Oh, geez.
So I felt like that was kind of like an extreme jealousy type thing, but that was one example, like.
Now, was he like that through the whole marriage?
Yes, he was. And I mean, he would get angry, like, he got angry over other things too. That was one of the things he got angry over. One time, this happened, I think at the time, I think we'd only been married like about a year and a half or something. I was like 17 or something. I had taken the car to take him to work. I finished high school after we got married. So I would take him to work, go to school, whatever. And one time I went to pick him up at work, and I was like 10 minutes late. I hadn't really thought nothing of it. I was just getting there as quick as I could. And when he got in the car, he said, why were you late? Well, I hadn't even thought about that. And I said, I don't know. I was just running late. And he hit me with his fist in my stomach.
Oh.
And I remember leaning out the car door, and I couldn't get my breath back. And I was just under my breath saying, oh, don't let me back. But yeah, I was like, it was scary. But yeah, just different things like that. The way, like, I remember when we had our first one and he disciplined her, I would step in and stop it because I did not like the way he disciplined, and he would push me out of the way and tell me that like they were going to grow up to be bad because of me, that it was going to be all my fault, that they were going to go to hell, and things like that. And I didn't like the kids to see me. I didn't like the kids seeing me physically abused. I watched my dad abuse my mom. That was a very horrible experience for me growing up. And so it was something I never wanted my kids to see, and I tried to avoid that. You know, like anytime he would run after the kids, I would go too. I was always, you know, scared.
I mean, you mentioned how scared you were, you know, with the first pregnancy, obviously, you know, and throughout the pregnancy, and obviously to giving birth. How long a span from the first child until the second child?
Well, actually, I didn't. After I had my first one, I had my little girl. I mean, I didn't care if it was a girl or a boy, but I had my baby, and I was happy, and I wasn't really wanting another one at that time. Besides, I wasn't excited about going through childbirth and all that again either. So anyway, no. Finally, he wanted a second one. He really wanted a second one. So, you know, I did agree to it, and we had a second one. The third one, when she came along, we weren't really. Well, I wasn't planning to have a third one at that time. He said he wasn't either. She was a little bit of a surprise, but she was a good surprise. But after that, I decided that, you know, I was okay with having more, and he definitely wanted more. And they just kept coming after that.
Now, you had mentioned, you know, about rock bottom. I mean, do you think you have hit rock bottom? I mean, is it only upwards from here? Obviously, with all the other children, you said one you're speaking to, but I mean, have you made steps emotionally or mentally or prepared your mind of how you're going to reach out to the rest of them and really, or what steps have you made? Like actual steps to make, or did you reach out to them, or what is the plan to start that healing process with the rest of your children?
Right, and you know, I actually wrote my daughter. Well, I actually wrote all of my children a letter. I'm not talking to them right now, but I can at least write them a letter and someday possibly get it to them. You know, did it from my heart, and so I did it when my roommates were asleep because I knew it was going to be very emotional for me too. I wanted to, you know, like my one daughter I had, she's the one that actually made the call and actually started the whole thing, and hers was the most emotional to me because in the letter I told her, I said, I thanked her for what she did. And I told her, you know, how proud I was of her for being so strong and having the courage to do what I didn't have the courage to do. But it's like, you know, it's very emotional because I said what I needed to say in that letter, like as if I was talking to her standing in front of me. And I did that with all of them. But I wanted her to know how proud I am of her.
That's great.
Now, I'm not sure if you saw the documentary about the family, about Jordan's miraculous, escape and reaching out to police. And obviously, the police came. The policeman had a body camera, so you see the whole, all the events. And I was wondering that. I mean, you had this look on your face when you opened the door the first time, and the police were there. I mean, you had this look of confusion and almost like you're baffled. And what was going inside your mind at that moment? What were you thinking when you opened the door and you saw the police there? What was running through your mind?
It was, it was shock. I remember exactly like when I think my first thought was how David would react. That was my first thought was everything that happened because I was really actually a little surprised that David stayed calm through the whole process because he has a temper that goes off very easily, and maybe it's because of those he knew, And I think for me, I was scared. I didn't really know, what was going on, or I don't know. I think for me, it was just I was scared, and I didn't really know what to expect.
Oh, I'm sure. And with his face, it looked like actually more confusion than anything else.
And I tell you, the crazy part is, it's like I used to actually one day you're going to go to prison. I used to tell him that. So one day you're going to end up in prison. You know, like, the reason I did that is because of the abuse. And it's like, but I don't know why. I can't, for the life of me, can't understand why I say why. I mean, I know what I was thinking then, but now I look at it and I know the difference. It's crazy to me that I actually say and
We spoke a little earlier about, if you can go back and change things from the past, say it was a hard decision because of children and having children and, but with the relationship with David. But what specifically would you do if you could go back, especially for all those people who are in abusive relationships? I mean, what would you do differently specifically regarding the relationship with David, since it was, it seemed to be doomed from the start?
well, okay, let me tell you what was one of the things that started me is I was scared and I didn't know where to go. And especially that many kids, where would I go? What would I do? And then I was scared of his reaction to that. Knowing what I know now, I believe I'm strong enough now that I could have, what I would have done differently is I would have, it's hard. The hardest part is I had too many kids. But a lot of them were adult children at the time. But even before then, I should have done it a long time ago. But I probably, if I had to do over now, I would probably contact one of my family members from, like North Carolina or West Virginia, because I didn't have anybody in the state that I lived in. We always lived far away from the family. But I would have probably seen if I could have gotten them to help me. There was one time on the phone that, and it's like, I don't know, this is later, like, I don't know if this is like 2013, I think this is actually 2014. Actually, because I hadn't talked to anybody about what was going on. Everything was secret, and I was scared to talk to anybody. And so I remember one time I was on the phone with my mom and I broke out crying. And I had, just dealt with David and I talked to my mom and I broke out crying and asked me, like questions. And I finally opened up and started talking to her from whatever he said anything about it. And she was very concerned. And I remember her telling him that I need to get out of there and I need to leave. And she told me that she could come and stay with me. I said, that they could come and stay too. But she didn't have a very big place. But my mom was sick at the time. She actually passed away a couple of years after, about a year and a half after that. And but I never talked to anybody else about it, and I'd only talked to her. So I remember telling me that I need to get out.
And I think that what people want to hear most from you is with the children. You don't hear words, abuse and torture. People want to know, how was this allowed to happen? We hear about the love for the children, want to reach back out to the children, but people are going to have a hard time hearing that you love your children when, the conviction was from being from torturous conditions and that level of abuse. They want to know, how would a mother allow this to happen to her children? So if you can, if it's all possible, as far as I'm sure it can be, and it's hard for people even to listen to, how would you can explain that? I mean, where mentally, how could you allow this to happen? What was going through your mind, and maybe even the mind of David, if you can put any light on this to explain these events?
He was the head of the house, and pretty much, how the Bible says that the head of the house, the man's the head of the house, and that's where it stemmed from. He told me that his dad was like that, so, and I didn't know that until he told me that. Just like when we were first married, and he told me, we were first married. We were married about a year, or a little over a year, and I asked him, we can just be a counselor. And he said, no, because we don't need to. He said that everything was normal. And I explained to him that this was not normal. And he told me that yes, he said yes, it is. He said, my dad does that to my mom. And I remember him saying that. So I think a lot of it's like how he was raised and what he was raised to believe. Right. He took a lot of it biblically too. Like divorce was even wrong. You know, like that was always brought up to me too. So.
Really people pleasers, I'm sure, is a more better definition or better phrase of that than people pleasers. But do you find yourself in that position today, or throughout the relationship, that no matter what kind of abuse was going on with David and the children, what was going on, but you had to go along with her? You're just naturally a people pleaser today. That it just mentally, that's the damage that happened, and you're just an over people pleaser.
And I think that's very interesting because I noticed, like, when I first came here, and since I've been here, I really have been like that. Where it's like I'm a people pleaser, and I'm just trying to please everybody. Like I had that mentality not to say no. Like if somebody says, "Can I have this?" I'd be like, "Oh yeah," like I can see where that was in my mind. But yeah, I do see what you're saying, and that makes a lot of sense. Yes, and I would agree with you.
I mean, what's such a high profile occasion, especially with children involved? I'm assuming there's a lot of hate mail that came in. I mean, assuming that, and what kind of letters and what were people saying when they reached out to you? Were there anything positive? Anybody reach out to you encouraging? I mean, that's what I do. I mean, I do reach out to people that I think the world is not encouraging and looking down upon and sending hate mail to, and to see if I mean, everybody deserves a second chance in my mind. I mean, especially trying to learn the reasonings why behind everything. But what kind of mail did you get? What were people reaching out to you? I mean, especially when you got to the facility, what was that like? Because I know it's very frowned upon in men and women's ministry when there's children involved. Now, there wasn't murders or anything, but just with abuse and neglect. How were you received there, and what happened when you got to the facility, and what kind of mail were you getting right off the bat?
I have had some positive email. A lot of mail. Well, actually, I said email, but I've gotten a lot of mail since I've been. But more of it's been, it doesn't seem like hate mail, but it's kind of interesting because I've gotten mail from Australia, from France, from Canada, and then different places there, States. And what I used to do was when I was a kid, I would tear it up and throw it away. There's been a couple of times that I looked at it, and there was this one lady that sent me a Christmas card, and I don't remember what it said, but it was really nice and it caught my attention. Mm-hmm. And I wrote her back and thanked her for the card, the kind words, and everything. Mm-hmm. And she's been very nice. We've actually talked one time, and I just did the first video visit with her about a week ago, and but we've stayed in touch. She's been really nice and supportive, and like that was pretty nice. There was somebody that wrote me. There's a man and his wife that wrote me that are Christian, and very positive, very supportive. That one I talked to, and I've talked to on the. I've done a video just of this, and they've been really nice.
As we're kind of wrapping up, what advice would you give somebody who's going through an abusive relationship themselves? To stop anything happening from the future. And we look at some of these, they're the most violent offenders in history, even, to serial killers. Obviously, it's part of my show. It all started with, not all, but a lot from a troubled background or some type of abuse. And that maybe they weren't able to get out of for some reason, especially through a mother and father abusing a child. or husband and wife, whatever it may be, a man or woman. But for specifically the women who are listening, they might be going something very similar that you are when you first started dating David. What advice would you give on what to do, how to get out of it, or anything encouraging that we can pull from this conversation? What would you say to those that what they could do now or start doing now, so it's not going to, so we don't have another incident like this. We don't have another court case like this where we hear about the abuse and everything with the children, or in any aspect of negativity or any type of a violent crime stemming from a time when they were personally abused. What would you say to that person?
To never be afraid, and to always know that there are people that can help you, and that you are strong. I haven't been helping for so long. I would want them to know that you are stronger than you realize. And you're beautiful, you're amazing, and it doesn't matter what anybody else says. You are special. And God knows you're special. But when you don't have anyone else, you'll always have him.
All right, everybody. That was my conversation with Louise Turpin. Hopefully, we're going to have her on for a video, a chat also in the future. Hopefully, in the near future. It's not an easy conversation. I uploaded. We did a little video chat a few years ago when I had a TikTok page. It's funny as it is. It was around the Super Bowl time, and tonight's the Super Bowl. I'm not sure when this is going to upload. I think I'm trying to upload it today, but. Just her talking about was in the Eagles. I'm in the South Jersey, Philadelphia area, and the Eagles were in the Super Bowl, and we were talking about that, and we were just having a little happy chat, maybe a 30-second upload that I did of a video chat we had, and on YouTube. Oh gosh, it had like 50 or 60,000 views, very quickly. And I actually put, disabled the comments, and I'll probably disable the comments here. It's not about negativity as far as, lashing out against her, which is understandable. But I just want, get inside her mind. And so we heard from her. I don't know what positivity we can learn from that. Hopefully there's something we can glean from that. So I hope you enjoyed our conversation. And again, why I do what I do is for this reason, is to not just give them a platform to say why, but who knows who's listening? Maybe their children are listening. And I know one of their children, the girl that talks, to her is also talking to David, believe it or not. So David Turpin and Louise Turpin are both in contact with one of the daughters. And David told me, that I know she has listened to the podcast, the audio version of this. So who knows what kind of positive it come out from it, but I hope we glean something from it with a conversation. I said we have a lot more to come. And hopefully with everybody, I'm trying to show how positive influence does help change somebody's heart, even the hardest heart from serial killers, if they're willing to change. If some of them haven't not just hit rock bottom, but some of them, like Wayne Adam Ford, knew his brain wasn't working correctly. The murders that he had and chopping up the victims' bodies, and he turned himself in because he knew there was a problem. We all have to get to that point where we know we have a problem. Even if that's you, and we gotta, if you don't want to change or you don't think something is wrong, if a stranger walks up to you and said, "Hey, here's a pill, you need to take this, or you're going to die." Well, you're going to punch the guy, run away. But if a doctor, your family doctor, after your diagnosis, after your blood work came to you and said, hey, the bad news is you got this problem, this disease, this illness. But good news is if you take this pill, it's going to get better. I'll take that pill in a second. So we all got to get to the point where we realize we're sick, something's wrong. From drug abuse, alcohol abuse, from psychopathy. Getting mental help. Is there a cure? No. But through positive reinforcement, through love and kindness, we do see there is changes being made, even if it's only baby steps. So anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. We have a lot more to come. All right. Until next time. See ya.